My name is Bill. Welcome to Night Terrors this week. Fake Ghost is created by Canadians. I got those mixed up. Okay, should have done that one first. If you value what I do on the Night Terrors channel, one way to support the channel is through Patreon. Become a patron of the show by clicking on the Patreon link in the description below. Thank you for supporting the show. Welcome to Eldergrown and Takahama Plateau. Eldergrown says YouTube is live. Thank you, Elder. Let's get started. Hi, T Plateau. David Brush Jr. says good evening to everyone. Welcome, David. Here at sciencyclopedia.sbr.ac.uk is a story entitled The Philip Psychokinesis Experiments. Do we have an author? Negative. Looks like not. Double check at the end. And notes, no. Oh, yes, K.M. Werstein. And K.M. Werstein begins. In this landmark 1970s experiment, a Canadian group succeeded in creating classic seance phenomena, such as rapping noises and table levitations, while communicating with a fictional discarnate spirit, whose identity, personality, and memories they had made up. Welcome, Brooke Birch. Welcome, Zerithian. Shane Riley says hello. How you doing, Shane? In 1973, other sources say 1972. In fact, more say 72 than 73, so I'm just going to assume a typo there. A group of 8 members of the Toronto Society for Psychical Research, or the TSPR, in Toronto, Canada, decided to address by experiment certain questions that arise with regard to psychokinetic phenomena that occur during mediumship sittings, such as rapping noises and tipping tables. Welcome, Green Tea. Green Tea says, greetings, groovy guys and gals. Does a seance require the presence of at least one individual gifted with psychic powers? Can the phenomena be produced in full light, allowing them to be filmed? Are they caused by a disembodied spirit, or rather by the unconscious psychic activity on part of the participants themselves? The group proposed to recreate the conditions of a spiritualist seance, with a key difference. No one would be present who claimed to have the powers of a medium or the powers of a psychic. And attempts would be made to create a fictional entity solely for the purpose, rather than a genuine deceased individual. The group's original members, most identified by first names only, were people such as a self-employed heating engineer, an industrial engineer, an accountant, a housewife trained in bookkeeping, whose main hobby was scouting. Thank you, Zerithian, for subscribing with Prime. By the way, folks, you can subscribe to one YouTube channel gratis. That means for free. And it should be Night Terrors. Welcome to the Medic 95348. Welcome, Medic. Sydney, the youngest member, a sociology student, taking time off to work as a salesman. Sue, chairman of the Canadian chapter of Mensa. And Iris, the wife of Dr. George Owen, director of the New Horizons Research Foundation. So just normal people here. Susan was assigned to invent the fictional ghost's story, which she did as follows. Congratulations, T-Plateau, for the streak. Welcome to Synchro 505. Mike provides all the incidental music for the show. Thank you, Mike. And here's the invented ghost. Philip was an aristocratic Englishman living in the time of Oliver Cromwell, mid-1600s. He was Catholic and had supported the king and was married to a beautiful but frigid and cruel wife, Dorothea. While out riding, he caught sight of a beautiful raven-haired gypsy girl, Margot, and instantly fell in love. Bringing her back to live in his gatehouse, he kept their affair a secret. But Dorothea found out and accused Margot of witchcraft and husband-stealing. Afraid to lose his reputation and possessions, Philip did not protest at Margot's trial. She was burned at the stake. Stricken with remorse, Philip took to pacing the battlements in despair, and finally, unalived due to self-harm, by throwing himself off the high wall. All of this, of course, being the fictional ghost that they were going to try to raise. The experiment. Green tea with a watch streak. Congratulations, Green Tea. And thank you, ma'am. Each member of the group memorized the story and tried to visualize Philip, making him as real as they could in their minds. They mutually agreed on all aspects of his appearance, personality, and preferences. Andy produced a drawing of him. The group decided to attempt to cause him to manifest in visible form. Only then, they hypothesized, might he be summoned. The group members made a commitment to meet weekly for weekly sessions for a year. They sat in a circle around a table with a drawing of Philip at its center, or a piece of aluminized cardboard on the floor instead of the table, in the hope of causing Philip to materialize upon it. The sittings were never held in full darkness, but rather colored lights or candlelight. After a period of quiet meditation, they would share what they had felt or experienced during the session, then meditate again. The length of the meditation increased as group members became used to it. In discussions, they continued to develop Philip as a character. He has made no appearance so far, solidifying their collective notion of his personality. In time, they found themselves becoming convinced he had really lived. A year passed without significant results. Iris Owen read papers by psychical researchers Brooks Smith, D.W. Hunt, and K.J. Batchelder that described techniques used during 19th century séances. Quote, the participants sat around in a relaxed and jolly atmosphere, singing songs and hymns, making jokes and carrying on conversation. End quote. Welcome to, it looks like, Noisance. Thank you, Noisance. May be related to séance, but not sure. Do tell, Noisance. Accordingly, the group adjusted their methodology, although continuing to work in light and without designating one person as the medium. On the third or fourth session, conducted this way, the group felt a vibration in the tabletop, at first too quiet to hear, but repeating and gradually becoming audible. The table then began to slide randomly around the room. All people present could see that no living person was either pushing or rapping upon it. A few sessions later, Dorothy exclaimed, this is Dorothy, not Dorothea, I wonder if Philip is doing this, and was answered with a loud rap. From then on, Philip seemed to be present at the sessions, rapping in answer to questions, in time with song. and in a way that sounded like laughter when jokes were told. Using one rap for yes and two for no, the group had him tell his story to see if this would match their creative conception, and this proved generally to be the case. Any new material could usually be traced to an earlier comment by a group member, as was also the case when Philip gave historically inaccurate answers, which could almost always be traced to incorrect knowledge on part of the group. The group remained aware that they had created Philip, but came to treat him as a group member. They would greet him each session, and he would rap the table under each individual member's hand. Other physical manifestations included flickering of the colored lights and particular movements of the table upon request. These movements became increasingly varied. The table might tip up on two legs or on one, or rock in time to the music, slide toward anyone new entering the room, revolve in a waltzing movement, or chase people, while group members tried to keep their hands on it. Eventually, it levitated entirely. On one occasion, they placed a piece of candy on the table, which then tilted to a 45-degree angle without falling off. When they tilted the table themselves, it slid off and fell in the normal way. Out of the tilting position, I imagine. Green Tea says, the group created the manifestation. I wonder if I could manifest someone to clean my gutters. Where are we picking up here? It was found that these phenomena would occur with as few as 4 of the members present. During the summer of 1974, when the group took a brief break from its weekly meetings, some of the members experienced poltergeist phenomena in their own homes. Though rapt conversations with Philip through rapt conversations with Philip, his dramatic story was much expanded with added details. In an attempt to show the Philip experiment was replicable, another group comprised entirely of different members of the TSPR similarly created and visualized a character named Lilith, a French-Canadian girl who became a member of the French Resistance in World War II and was captured and shot as a spy. Within 5 weeks of beginning sittings, they began to get motions of the table and then rapping, which answered questions in the character of the fictional girl. As a result of this second experiment, Owens asserts that any group of people can acquire the ability to generate such phenomena. The Philip experiment drew the attention of TV stations and other media. The CBC filmed an hour-long documentary entitled Philip the Imaginary Ghost, which is now available in DVD. The Toronto station City TV broadcast an episode of the program, World of the Unexplained, which was about the Philip experiment. It can now be seen on YouTube and includes a full levitation of the table and some very forceful raps coming as answers. Another video shows raps and motions of the table and features interviews with Iris Owen and Joel Witten. Here's the hypotheses, or the supposed explanations. The Philip group felt they had achieved their goal of proving that psychokinetic phenomena could be produced without the aid of one naturally gifted person acting as a medium, and in full light, even under the bright lights used for television recording. The third question, whether such phenomena were caused by disembodied spirits or the living participants, was more difficult to answer. The group did not go so far as to claim that all apparitions originate subconsciously in the minds of living people and have no independent reality. Instead, they saw their experiences in the context of poltergeist phenomena. Owen hypothesized that the energy arose from the combined focus of the group members on one object. When members were sick, the phenomena would manifest more weakly. According to Owen, there was no question in the minds of the group members that Philip's personality was a composite of their own, since he was their own creation. Conjuring Up Philip, I guess that's the name of a book, includes Witten's psychological explanation rooted in Jungian concepts. By unconsciously attempting to be childlike, though playful behavior, he writes, the group members regress to a childlike view of reality, lacking knowledge of the laws of physics, and simply states, if I want it to happen, it will. They are also acting out subconscious conflicts, Witten opines, with Dr. Owen taking the symbolic place of the father, whom the children want to please, and the group's Electra and Oedipal conflicts being reenacted through Philip and Dorothea, providing energy for the phenomena. Philip's raps were recorded and translated into sound charts by Alan Gould of the Society for Psychical Research in England, showing that they had different acoustic quality than normally created raps. The force behind the table motions could be quite powerful, as was discovered by a group of physicists and psychologists who invited the group to Cleveland, Ohio for a demonstration. One physicist sat on the table and was thrown off violently. The nature of the force generating the motion, however, has yet to be determined. An interesting aspect of the experiment arose when Sid jokingly told Philip that if he didn't answer, the group might send him away. Thank you, Elder. What is tulpomancy? Thank you, Elder. We will count that as a request. Told Philip that if he didn't answer, the group might send him away. The phenomena virtually stopped, and the group had to work to bring him back next session, fortunately with success. This episode seemed to confirm the view that an artificial entity, having been created by thought, could also be destroyed by one, offering reassurance that if Philip somehow became dangerous, he could easily be removed. According to Owen, the Philip experiment seemed to have a therapeutic effect upon its participants. The group became like family, close-knit, happy, said Al. One of the participants was Al, and one of the original participants. Andy said that she attained increased social growth and self-confidence, and that group members are far more often to be open to each other and in their daily lives. Shyness on social occasions seems to have disappeared. It could be said that we have become more aware of other people and the world around us. End quote from Andy. And the author given here, Cam Worston. Thank you, Synchro 505. All right, let's get to our first suggestion. We need suggestions, by the way, folks. Our first suggestion from T Plateau is at 19 minutes past the hour. And that is... Oh, it's already on a tab. And why am I moving this around? Because it should go over here. It should stay there. It should be deleted. Or just left alone. Let's just leave it alone. And that is right here. Suggested by T Plateau at sfgate.com, suggested by Eldergrown, is a story by Katie Dowd entitled In 1939, Sabotage Killed Dozens. This has to be in the city of San Francisco. in the city of San Francisco. The killer escaped. One of T. Plateau's famous mysteries. Thank you, T. Plateau. The caption here is the name of the train. Oh, that from Elder. Thank you, Elder. The caption here, a pile driver in action at the scene of the wreck of Southern Pacific's luxury Streamliner train. Is that Steamliner or Streamliner? Streamliner, called the city of San Francisco. Oh, that's why it's on. The crash took place in Carlin, Nevada, in August of 1939. The city of San Francisco was 30 minutes late when it pulled out of Carlin, Nevada, on the evening of August 12, 1939. The train was America's most luxurious Streamliner. Launched the year before to transport guests between Chicago and Oakland. It cost $2 million to build, and was lush with Kelly green seats and signage printed in metallic copper ink. Elder Gones says, oh, Elder has a suggestion. Thank you. I mean, Gotcha Man has a suggestion. Thank you, G-Man. Got it. We're going to put you in number 2 slot. So you're coming up, pal. Thank you, G-Man. Appreciate it. Back to the story. The windows had been specially tinted by Polaroid to filter glare. In 1939, this is before Polaroid became an Instamatic, I imagine. Its top-of-the-line horsepower cut 19 hours from the trip from the Midwest to the West Coast. Engineer Ed Hecox was keenly aware the train was behind schedule, but he knew the area well. He'd been transporting passengers through the West since he was a stagecoach driver in the 1880s. We're talking 50 years earlier here, folks. This long, empty stretch of Nevada would give him plenty of space to make up time. He pushed the city of San Francisco to 90 miles an hour. Dinner service had just wrapped up in the restaurant car, and many passengers were enjoying post-meal drinks. They noticed the train was hitting turns hard since the leaving of Carlin. 2 beer bottles fell to the ground in one curve. On another, a woman was flung from her seat into the aisle. Everyone else laughed. Guests lounge, says the caption, in a car in the luxurious city of San Francisco Streamliner train. The train derailed in 1939. 2 women in their sleeper car on the city of San Francisco left, and a stewardess on the luxury train are seen in 1938. At 9:33 p.m., speeding toward bridge number 4 over the Humboldt River Gorge, Hecox saw a tumbleweed on the left rail of the track. He had testified at a 1941 civil trial, probably against him. That attracted my attention, as all weeds do, he said. But when I struck the tumbleweed, I felt a jar. Hecox braked, but it was too late. The city of San Francisco was derailing. The forward engines, propelled by momentum, slid off the rails but kept going across the bridge. Behind it, 5 cars decoupled. The Presidio, a 32-seat coffee shop kitchen car. Mission Dolores, a 72-seat dining car, the Embarcadero, a lounge car, and Twin Peaks and Chinatown, both sleepers, plunged through the wooden track ties onto the riverbed below. Hecox later recalled, "My first thought was, I wonder how many are going to be killed." That was his first thought? How about I'm an idiot? In the twisted wreckage were 24 unalived and dying passengers and crew, unalived and unaliving. Survivors crawled through the carnage, passing body parts torn apart by the impact. In the darkness, stewardess Thelma Ristvet, face covered in blood from a head wound, helped passengers until she passed out. Sigro says, "This is an excellent story." Thank you, Michael. It was too dark to see, so they began to set parts of the train on fire just for light. Help was miles away. Do you have a caption in here? Yeah, we do. This mass of twisted wreckage was once the beautiful Streamliner, which was wrecked near Carlin, Nevada, killing 24 people and injuring over 100 more. As soon as the train ground to a halt, Hecox started running for the closest town. Between his train and that town was nothing, no telephones, no people. When he got to the town of Harney, the alarm was finally raised. Volunteers from town followed Hecox back to the crash site. Nearly all of the 170-plus people aboard were injured. One passenger, a doctor, triaged the wounded. It was a long night for them. Welcome, Two Feathers. The first rescue train would not arrive until the next morning. Rescue train? Can't they send a few stagecoaches across the desert? I mean, it's 1939. They could send Model T Fords. With the rescue train came investigators from the Southern Pacific, local law enforcement, and the FBI. They poured over the site, which unfortunately for agents was unbelievably contaminated. Locals of the helpful and looky-loo varieties had walked over every inch of dirt. Some had taken away pieces of the train as souvenirs. It was all hopelessly muddled. Sabotage was quickly discovered, though, in the stretch leading up to the bridge. A 30-foot section of rail had been tampered with. Its spikes were pulled out so the rail could be forced inward. The tumbleweed Hecox saw had been tied onto the rail to hide the gap. Brown paint coated the area, another attempt to disguise the vandalism. Dan O'Connell, the Southern Pacific's chief special agent out of San Francisco, said the job would have taken 90 pounds of tools, carried from the highway over a mile away, and several hours to accomplish. There was a 4-hour window when no trains passed through during which to accomplish the deed. Inside job, huh? This captioned a large crowd of people on a railway station platform next to the city of San Francisco Streamliner in 1938. There's the Streamliner there. Isn't she a beauty? One investigator reenacted the task for the Chronicle in 1939. 4 heavy tools were necessary, they concluded, and whoever did it had to pull a 1,500-pound rail 5 inches from its position and spike it back down. If one man did it, he had the strength of a giant, the Chronicle wrote. Many investigators agreed. This was the work of at least 2 determined, able-bodied men, perhaps with some knowledge of rail operation. But instead of focusing on suspects with ties to the railroad, detectives went around rounding up the usual suspects, men made homeless by the Great Depression. They first sought a suspicious figure reportedly seen near the crash site in the hours before. Witnesses swore he had no ears. So an APB went out, an all-points bulletin, and Bob Leducker was found a day later. The 35-year-old had just one ear. He also had half a foot, which would have made the physical task of derailing a train nearly impossible. He proved he was 300 miles away on the day of the accident, and the police released him. Next, investigators were sent to every hobo jungle in California, Utah, and Nevada. The Associated Press reported they were also rounding up any transients in the Harney area. The strategy was likely driven in part by the Southern Pacific president, A.D. McDonald, who confidently told the media that one person of diseased brain wrecked his train. Brookbird says, poor hobos. I know, right? The Chronicle argued in an editorial, lunatics do not have the capacity for sustained cooperation such as this labor required. Two Feathers says, I worked in a restaurant that was made from several of these kind of cars. It also had a bar and a full kitchen as well. I wish it was still around, but it's not. Thanks for sharing your personal experience, Two Feathers. Welcome to Pedro Rojas Cervantes. The Chronicle continues, madmen they must have been, mad in the judgment of normal-minded men. Yet there is an elusive quality in this deed that shows something besides madness at work. The key to the whole thing, a motive, is an enigma to this day. Terrorism, domestic or international, seems doubtful, as no group ever claimed responsibility for the act. More likely, it was the work of several men with a grudge against Southern Pacific, or an individual on the train. There was some chatter at the time that it was actually a case of negligence, that the train had been derailed due to its unsafe speed. But the FBI's recovery of clearly vandalized rails and tools hidden in the Humboldt River seems to refute this. They glossed over that point about the tools being hidden in the Humboldt. In the end, over 93,000 people were interviewed by detectives. After the outbreak of World War II, the case was taken off active status. Other than a civil suit in the 1940s, which yielded payouts for some injured passengers, the survivors of the city of San Francisco got no other justice for the crime. F.S. Foote, Jr., who suffered a broken jaw and sternum, punctured lung, internal hemorrhaging, a concussion, and cracked ribs, was awarded $7,500, just enough to pay his hospital bill. Plus, he told newspapers, Southern Pacific gave him $5, which covered the additional fare he paid to upgrade to the city of San Francisco. Pedro says, some of my best friends are Humboldt squids. And the letter that came with this $5 check said, while technically a refund of only the value of the unused portion of the ticket would be in order, we are refunding the full amount of the extra fare due to the interruption of our service. Trust that we shall have the pleasure of serving you in the future. Okay, it's time to move on to the next suggestion. And yes, people, we still need suggestions. Next suggestion is from Gosher Man at 34 minutes past the hour. And that suggestion is The Mojave Megaphone. Interesting. Thank you, Gotcha Man. Like a good one. Put that in the list. Pedro says he likes my Humboldt squid hoodie. Thank you, Pedro. And we're back to G-Man with the Mojave Megaphone. Green Tea asks me, do you still have leftovers from last week, or do we use them all? I have your topic from last week, and it will be coming up this evening, probably. In fact, I have one from you and one from Big Daddy from last week. Searching for the Mojave Megaphone, the mysterious Mojave Megaphone at Atlas Obscura. Adventure Taco. What is the Mojave Megaphone? Unresolved on Reddit. Lost artifact. MapQuest. Who's behind the mysterious Mojave Desert Megaphone? Let's try the Victorville Daily Press on that. And hopefully they will let us read the whole article. It looks okay. Let's tone down the size of the print a little bit here. It looks okay. This story by John R. Byer at vvdailypress.com. Entitled Byer's Byways, the Mojave Megaphone near Ludlow remains a curious mystery. And Mr. Byer begins. Who doesn't like a mystery? Listening to a tale of the unknown. Goblins, ghosts, monsters. And perhaps goosebumps. Probably not. I rarely get goosebumps. The exception is when I see how much we spend each month on the necessities of life. Such as, what is a Gourlane Shalimar? Elder says the picture looks like a giant rifle scope. I wonder if we can get a close-up look at that. Oh, sir. Wow. What happened? That made this larger too. Of course it did. It's a bit of iris, vanilla, and bergamot. Bergamot? Bergamot? A citrus fruit. Very calming, and when added with other ingredients, it has a very nice aroma. No, don't think of the cost. Don't even go there. It calms everyone down. That's a good thing. Sitting around one evening, a friend asked me if I had ever heard of the Mojave Megaphone. There it is. Hopefully that picture's a little bit bigger. Not much bigger. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How do you get up there? And for young people only. I had not heard of it, but I did remember the megaphone my high school football coach used on a regular basis. Byer, you're the slowest runner in the entire league, he barked, using his 5,000-watt pearl-white handheld megaphone. My grandmother could outrun you. She's been unalive for the last 20 years. Thank you, T-Plateau. That made no sense. I wasn't buying that even as a teenager that unalive people could actually run faster than me. But never argue with a coach who routinely uses a 5,000-watt megaphone to let you know he wasn't pleased with your athletic performance. I wasn't dumb. Did I run faster? Probably not. But I pumped my arms faster, which gave the illusion I was. Soon the megaphone was pointed at someone else. No, I had never heard of the Mojave megaphone. Sounds pricey like that Shalimar. According to a campsitephotos.com article, the megaphone may have been used by the United States military during the 1940s and 50s, during secret and nasty types of chemical weapon tests in the remote Mojave Desert. In agreement, an article on InTheDesert.com states this mysterious object was used as a siren. But a siren for what? To warn people that the U.S. government was about to release lethal amounts of gas into the desert between Ludlow and Baker? That's where the megaphone is, right there. I wonder how close you can... Do they have like a coordinates? They don't. Obviously, more research was needed. So according to WeHaveNoIdea.com, the object sat on top of a small hill, past tense knows the past tense, in the Mojave Desert, and is simply there. I called the CEO to see if they had any further details on the enigma. No, we have no idea. Really? Such a mystery. I surely thought you'd have more information, I said, pressing the issue. Sir, what's the name of your website? Back to Google. I found an article by Nathan Chandler published on January the 15th. It provided many other ideas on why this contraption was located in the middle of nowhere. He interviewed a number of people to get the lowdown on this piece of metal that sits atop a rocky hill. Looking into and through the megaphone, says the caption here. It's about 8 feet long, weighs nearly 600 pounds, and is hollow, narrow in the middle and wide at each end. The object is securely attached to 2 solid rocks with bolts drilled into them. Chandler's sources reported the megaphone could be 30 years old or more, and may have been a Venturi pipeline venture. I looked that up. Quote, the principle behind the operation of the Venturi flow meter is the Bernoulli effect. The Venturi measures a fluid's flow rate by reducing the cross-sectional flow area and the flow path and generating a pressure difference. According to Chandler's piece, the idea was the U.S. Air Force tested many new types of aircraft in the 50s and 60s, and this instrument was used to test shock or sound waves. But 2 of my favorite possibilities from that article are that the megaphone is pointing towards a huge cache of gold, and aliens may have set it there. Humans will be puzzled by this thing, Zug, an alien, announced. Doesn't look like much of a megaphone to me. Rizig, another alien, sneers in reply. There was a mystery afoot, and I needed to use my feet to solve it. Actually, my friend Paul and I took my Toyota FJ, which turned out to be better than walking. Toyota FJ. No idea. The directions to this wonder of wonders were easy to follow. No need to utilize GPS and risk up ending in Seattle. How long is this story? We left at the crack of dawn, taking exit 50. Always be aware of current dirt road and weather conditions in the Mojave Desert. Much of the land between I-40 and north towards Interstate 15 includes areas where sand can build up, causing a nightmare without a 4x4 vehicle. In inclement weather, this can cause mud or torrents of water along desert roadways. So study weather reports and ensure your vehicle is appropriate for off-roading. We drove along Crucero Road for about 23 miles before we came across the remnants of a railroad track bed situated just west of the road. There were no steel rails to be seen, but the ties were still there, sitting in the afternoon sun on top of the track bed. The track bed was going straight as an arrow towards some hills. Paul asked, "Someone once was delivering something out here?" "Chemicals for tests," I suggested. "I have no idea," he responded. There seemed to be a theme. The road to the hills was pretty hard-packed, with only a few patches of soft sand. 1 mile, 2 miles, no megaphone. "It has to be here," says Paul. "Eldergrown with a link." FJ Cruiser. "Oh, we can get to see what the FJ looks like. Thank you, Elder." "Oh, some kind of four-wheeler. Not that bad looking, I guess." As it turns out, we hadn't looked in the rearview mirror. Once we did, we saw it, sitting proudly atop a rocky 100-foot-high hill. Paul observed, "We wouldn't have missed it if we had headed south from the 15. Evidently, that was true. I looked up and realized that from one direction the megaphone would be hidden from view, while from the other it appeared in plain sight. The trek to the megaphone is not for the weak of heart. It's not that high, but there are boulders over which to scramble, and the whole deal is pretty steep. I was sucking air like I had forgotten how to breathe by the time we reached the pinnacle. After a moment, however, I knew the struggle had been worth it. The megaphone is large. It's rusting, and it's solidly attached to the rocks. It's also just plain cool. Whoever had the fortitude to place it there was either a genius or a nut job, or a government." Paul pounded on the side, and a low ring emitted from the megaphone. "This is awesome," he said. I just nodded. There's Paul, after he banged on the megaphone, I guess. "Is the trip to the megaphone worth it?" "Yes. Exploring the empty desert and marveling at the solitude and beauty is always worth it. We speculated over its designer and purpose long into the evening." They didn't try it out. Did they even see if it works like a megaphone? Look at those nice standoffs. Until our campfire grew cold. What better ending to any day than to stumble upon a mystery bolted into the rocks in the middle of nowhere, and simply ponder why. Perhaps some intrepid explorer will one day discover that hoard of gold, stashed away by some long-forgotten miner. Until then, adieu. All right, it is now. Green tea with a picture of a truck she'd love to drive. I must know. Ooh. That doesn't have any sound, does it? Normally it doesn't in my end area of the woods. No sound is indicated. Good. It's corporate anyway, so I'm not too worried about... Yeah, it's a nice looking machine there. Let's X out of here. Next up, at 49 minutes past the hour, is a suggestion from... Let's do green tea first. Suggestion from green tea. The graffiti in the Tower of London. Who did it? Graffiti at the Tower of London. Writings on the wall. Here's the Guardian. Do the Guardian. This is what we're up against at the Guardian. Continue. X out. Here at theguardian.com is a story by Dela Alberge. And Dela begins. Wait, it's called 16th Century Graffiti of Tower of London Prisoners Decoded for the First Time. Graffiti. Once listed as illegible, the words of inmates held in bleak fortresses are revealed by the latest technology. This caption, hundreds of texts were scratched into the stone walls of the Tower of London. And Ms. Alberge begins. The writing was on the wall for the many prisoners incarcerated in the Tower of London over the centuries. Now it can be deciphered. Hundreds of graffiti texts scratched into the historic stone walls by prisoners as they awaited their fate have come to light for the first time. Examples that were either overlooked or illegible are emerging through cutting-edge technology. Dr. Jamie Ingram, heading a major project to study graffiti in the tower, described the discoveries as exciting. He began studying the Salt Tower on the southeastern corner, part of the curtain wall that Henry III, built in the 1230s. Its prisoners included Hugh Draper, a Bristol innkeeper accused of practicing sorcery and imprisoned in 1561, who carved an astrological sphere with zodiac signs into the wall, despite having claimed that he had destroyed all his magical books. No record exists of his fate. Ingram told The Observer, quote, there were supposed to be 79 examples of graffiti there, according to the Historic Survey. By the end of the survey that I conducted, there are 354 instances of graffiti in the towers of London. Very fine viewing of the surface of the walls has allowed us to identify what else is there, acknowledging that every mark is important, rather than just those that have been left by the famous prisoner. Here's something interesting. Newly discovered graffiti in Salt Tower in the Tower of London. That I gotta see. Closer up. P. Plateau says, off with their heads. Did I open that up yet? Yeah. Expose. Is this in English? Huh. No idea. The Tower of London has held prisoners including two princes, Edward V and Richard Duke of York, Anne Boleyn, her daughter Princess Elizabeth, and Guy Fawkes. Today it's managed by Historic Royal Palaces, an independent charity, which Ingram joined last year specifically to research one of the UK's most significant collections of historical graffiti. The latest technology, which includes raking light, laser scanning, and X-ray analysis, has never been applied at the tower before. Ingram said, light shone off at an angle enhances the creation of shadows on that surface and lets us really see the detail. As soon as we bring these modern methodologies to bear, things start to change quite dramatically. Suddenly we can actually read the graffiti. One section of a wall bears graffiti by possibly 3 hands. The dates 1571 and 1576 are also inscribed there. These had been listed as illegible, but are now being deciphered. While complete texts have not survived, certain words can be picked out. One of the passages seems to be Breton. In Breton, I guess that's the name of a dialect of English, Breton, and may well have been written by a woman. There are references to a husband as well as honor and rivers. Ingram said, "We haven't got any specific records of female prisoners in that tower. This is possibly a woman's voice, incredibly rare in graffiti, and the first example we've got in the Salt Tower itself. We know that there were women at the tower. They're just not representative in these physical first-person records. This is a rare primary record of a woman's presence, whether she's a prisoner herself or the wife of a prisoner." Most of the graffiti is pictorial, including crosses, which reflect a lot of religious prisoners were held in this place. Most of the texts are relatively short and include biblical passages. Funding for the graffiti study was made available by a private donor. Ingram will next focus on the Byward Tower at the southwest corner of the complex. He said, there's some amazing graffiti in there that's going to allow us to ask some more questions. But he expressed dismay that today's visitors are adding their own. If they're doing it with a pen or pencil, there's no evidence that it's being done until it's too late. Where we can, we clean it off, but it gets into the stone and damages the rock. It's horrifying that they're doing it on a monument so significant to us. The graffiti features in the Channel 5 documentary, Inside the Tower of London, available on MY5. And that's the end of that story. Green Tea says, arsehole tourists. This is fundraising under here. And related stories. I wonder if there's a more comprehensive report of this graffiti. This is dated, just this past year, December this past year, so only a year has passed. Graffiti, is there anything more recent on this? 16th century graffiti of Tower of London. Let's search on that. And look for something more recent by using filters. Not any time, but custom range. We'll say start date. We want to go back here, right? November 2024, let's make it. How come I'm double clicking and it's not working? Oh, 2024 goes here. And November is good, I guess. How do we say today? That's today. Search. Okay. Of course, the original story in December. Rare medieval barriers unearthed in the Tower of London. All from December or shortly thereafter in January. Greek reporter, Tower of London secrets. Prisoner graffiti from August 7, the Tower of London. At Flickr. That's what I want to see. Robert Mallory, 1518. People counting the days behind him, behind that inscription. There's more up here. Looks like names. Looks like Thomas. From Hensbegon? Straying. Strange. Strange spelled Aynge. Strange Metro. Strange Metro. Liberty. Spelled with the IE instead of Y on the end. My liberty, perhaps. My liberty. Deprived. There's a VED. Of my liberty. Thomas Mogg. And it's up here, Thomas Mogg. Spelled M-I-A-G-H. That, of course, next to other graffiti that was probably earlier by other people. Thomas Mogg, which lieth here alone, that fain would from hence be gone by torture, strange. My truth was tried, yet my liberty denied. Well, that's the translation. Kneeling prisoner carved into the wall. There he is. In the Beauchamp Tower. Prisoner graffiti. That's more like a prisoner carving. Green Tea says that many people that were executed were guilty of nothing but being in the way of the king's agenda. I do not doubt it. Know that these beasts do we behold and may deem wife or something. Ease, wherefore here made they the borders something or other. Who list to Sergei Fagrov. Who list to Sergei Fagrov. Sergei has ERIN on the end of it. Sergei, looks like an F. Fagrovener? Fagroverin. There you go. Worship there. Walter Paslew. W70. Elder with a hilarious Monty Python joke. Extrema Christus. It's interesting. With an anchor. Walter Paslew. Or Paslew. Put his name twice. Or else we would never know what it was from this group of pictures. Philip Howard, Earl of Arundel, 1587, Tower of London. So he wanted to do a flourish. That's what he ended up with. Not so easy if you don't have a pen, is it? June 22nd. William Tyrrell, 1541. Open image, a new tab, please. Another Flickr image. Maybe Latin. That's a hell of a nice sample of graffiti right there. 3 symbols are usually, oh, they're hanging in the wrong direction. We're going to say usually the sign of a pawn shop. Doctor's Cook. Or Dr. Cook. Thomas, it says. Dr. Cook. Pedro reminds us that the fisherman reference, or the anchor, may be related to the early Christian use of the fish as their secret sign. Because I think it was because Ichthos and the other one, which is I don't know. Let's ask AI. See if this will work. Test. Why was a fish used as the early symbol of Christians? Pedro says the 3 balls may represent Templar stonemason. It was an acronym, it says here. Ictus. Ictus. I standing for Jesus. X standing for Christ. T standing for God. The U standing for Son. Sigma standing for Savior. Therefore, Jesus Christ, Son of God, Savior. Because fish in Greek spelled the same as the acrostic. This gave the symbol a layered meaning, literal fish and encoded confession of faith. Turn off that dragon over there. Okay, where are we at the... Yeah? Yeah, it's time for the next suggestion. And it is, we're going to say 9 minutes past the hour. And that's going to be from Big Daddy from last week. And Big Daddy would like to know, has been waiting a long time for the answer. There's in the woods. Thank you, Green Tea. Got it. Answer. One of my favorite topics. My first video that I did out of coffee. Not my first video. My Stairs in the Woods video that I did under the auspices of the original Night Terrors show went semi-viral, which is kind of nice. My apologies, Mr. Cervantes. I get confused by private conversations in the chat sometime. Sorry about that. At medium.com. Bunch of TikToks. Gothic Library. View of staircase in the... Just a story according to this. Lots of TikTok. Staircase. No, we want stairs in the... Not staircase. Reddit stories about the stairs in the woods. Let's open that in a new tab. Yep. That's not sending any. No, it's not sending any audio. Good. Because we don't need that. Why is this not on Reddit? That's not. Next. Welcome, One Sean Bond. And family. So happy to see you here. It's all about that damn book, The Staircase in the Woods. Here we go. The Legend of the Mysterious Stairs in the Woods. Hopefully there'll be some writing here. Yeah, here at Rhino Loot 3z.squarespace.com. There's a story by uncredited, story by Anonymous, entitled The Legend of the Stairs in the Woods, explained and debunked, and we don't do debunked. Forget that part. We don't debunk on this channel. Something from medium.com. Examining the new paranormal wilderness nightmare. Thank you, Elder. This does look like the one we're going to use here. Well done, sir. As an avid hiker who did a lot of solo backpacking into very creepy territory, I was immediately intrigued and terrified to read of hikers' reports of mysterious staircases in the woods, leading to nowhere. After I'd gotten acquainted with David Paulides' Missing 411 books around 2018, all my solo camping ceased. The decision was slowly being made as I delved more and more into his documented missing persons cases. But it was made once and for all when I had my own experience, which was not easily explained. I hiked into an area devoid of humanity. But when the sun went down, I heard what sounded like men muttering all night long, and extremely loud tree knocking. The sounds would start and would cause all the other wildlife to stop and result in terrifying silence. Frogs, bugs, etc. It went on from sunset till sunrise. I never saw a single sign of humans as I ran out of those woods. As it turns out, this was a random area in New York where many Bigfoot encounters had been reported. So color me horrified when I am scrolling Reddit one evening from the safety of my bed and read the true encounters of a forest ranger who claimed that he and all his colleagues came across random staircases in the forest. Oh, I've come across it before. It is a true phenomenon. And that very strange things happened around these flights of mystery stairs, such as missing time. The forest ranger claimed he had been silenced by his colleagues on the matter, and that a culture of never mentioning the phenomenon out loud had developed well before his career began there, among the other forest rangers, you mean. Here's a quote from that Reddit. Now, I don't know if this is true in every SAR unit, search and rescue SAR, but in mine, it's sort of an unspoken regular thing we run into. Green Tea asks, how do you think the stairs you saw got out there? I think someone built them and then the house disintegrated around them. You can try asking about it with other search and rescue officers, but even if they know what you're talking about, they probably won't say anything. We've been told not to talk about it by our superiors. And at this point, we've all gotten so used to it, it doesn't even seem weird anymore. On just about every case where we're really far into the wilderness, I'm talking 30 or 40 miles here, folks. At some point, we'll find a staircase in the middle of the woods. It's almost as if you took the stairs in your house, cut them out, and put them in the forest. I asked about it the first time I saw some, and the other officer just told me not to worry about it. It was normal. Everyone I asked said the same thing. I wanted to go check them out, but I was told very emphatically I should never go near any of them. I just sort of ignore them now whenever I run into them because it happens so frequently. End quote. This, of course, is not Stairs in the Woods, but is a what do you call it? An art project. And somewhere in the UK, at a place that's very well traveled. An art installation, asks Eldergrown. Eventually, this Redditor wrote 8 parts to this tale, divulging on plenty of other stories and topics other than the stairs. But people continued to be fascinated by the rogue staircases, so the author trickled more and more information on that subject. He recounted a tale of his buddy, another SAR officer, and regaled the readers with X-Files style plot thickening. Welcome to Kayla Rain. Quote, my buddy has been a search and rescue officer for about 7 years. He started when he was a junior in college, and he had a similar experience when he first encountered the stairs. His trainer told him about almost the same thing mine did, which was to never go near or touch or walk on them. For the first year, he did just that, but apparently his curiosity got the better of him. And on one call, he broke away from the line and went to go to check a set of them out. A set of stairs, I guess he means. Kayla Rain loves the staircases in the woods. Thank you, Kay. Good to know. He said they were about 10 miles from the path where a teenage girl had vanished, and the dogs were following the scent. He was on his own, lagging behind the main group, when he saw a set of stairs off to his left. They looked like they were from a new house because the carpet was pristine and white. He said that as he got closer, he didn't feel any different or hear any weird noises. He was expecting something to happen, like bleeding from his ears or collapsing, but he got right up next to them. And, boy, this is a story. And he didn't feel anything. The only thing he said was that was that there was absolutely no debris on the steps. No dirt, leaves, dust, nothing. And there didn't appear to be any signs of animal or insect activity in the immediate area, which he found strange. Making sure his radio was on, he slowly climbed the stairs. He said it was terrifying because of the way they had been stigmatized. He wasn't really sure what was going to happen to him. He joked that half of him expected to be teleported to some other dimension, and the other half was watching for a UFO to come swooping down. He got to the top with little event and stood there looking around. But the longer he stood on the top step, the more he felt like he was doing something very wrong. He described it as the feeling you'd get if you were in part of a government building in which you have no business, as if someone was going to come and arrest you or shoot you in the back of the head at any second. He tried to brush it off, but got the feeling stronger and stronger. And that's when he realized he couldn't hear anything anymore. The sounds of the forest were gone. He couldn't even hear his own breathing. The weirdest part came after. His trainer was waiting back at the Welcome Center after the search ended for the day, and he cornered my buddy before he could leave. He said his trainer had this look of intense anger, and he asked what was wrong. "You went up to him, didn't ya?" My buddy said it wasn't phrased as a question. He asked how his trainer knew. The trainer just shook his head. "Because we didn't find her. The dogs lost her scent." My buddy asked what that had to do with anything. The trainer asked how long he'd been on the stairs. My buddy said no more than a minute. The trainer gave him this really awful, almost dead-eyed look and told him that if he ever went up another one of those staircases, he'd be fired immediately. The trainer walked away, and I guess he's never answered any of the questions my buddy has asked him about it since. But that was the reason the girl didn't get found. Part 4 gets more elaborate and dramatic, with this once rookie SAR officer talking about another rookie under his wing, and suddenly he found himself instructing that person to remain silent the way he had been told. At this point, the reader is hooked. Part 6 is where, if the reader has not already stopped to question whether these reports are real, they really should at this point. We are treated to a doozy of a story he hadn't felt like mentioning before, in which he shoots at a man and the man becomes a circus performer. Quote, "When I fired, he was about 50 yards from me, and as soon as the gun goes off, he whirls around and goes off, backflipping into the woods." Welcome, Ryu 1972. Good to see you, Ryu. Two Feathers says, "What's the worst that can happen?" All right, next topic coming up. We're at 24 minutes past the hour. It is. That suggestion from Big Daddy. Thank you, Big Daddy. I think there's another one coming up here. Yeah, there's a new one from Green Tea, I think. Or is that the one I did already? I don't think so. Try a new one from Green Tea. Oh, I went to a place I shouldn't have gone. Oh, there it is. Okay. Two Feathers says, "If you climb those stairs, you might end up in a different reality. But who knows? It could be a better one than this one." Big Daddy, welcome. We just did your suggestion. Stairs in the Woods. If you want to rewind 13 minutes, you can catch the whole thing, or you can check it out later. Welcome, Big Daddy. And Green Tea's new suggestion, The Ghosts of Ham House. Hint, Elizabeth Murray and her dog. Thank you, Green Tea. Ham House, haunted houses. The ghosts associated with Ham House in England are linked to Elizabeth Murray, the Countess of Dysart, who lived in the 17th century and was known for her political acumen during the English Civil War. Pardon me. I'll put this down over here. All right. Ham House. Welcome, Tina Tomaszewski. Tina is one of the original Night Terrors gangsters. Welcome, Tina. Let's see. Where's a good one? Little Old World, HD Clump, Hidden Treasures, House of Ghosts, Hill House. A lot of stuff about Hill House. Ham House, London. Lots about Hill House. This is Ham House. A Modern Monster. Is that Ham House? I cannot confirm that. Let's just go Ham House Haunting. It's a common search. It's in Dubuque, Iowa. Halloween family fun at Dubuque's River Museum. The Ham House lost in the States. Looks like there's more than one Ham House. But there's only one John Hamm. Love John Hamm and Mad Men. Haunted Hampton meets Harvest Charm. Let's go to hauntedhouses.com. What the heck? The Ham House in the UK, says Green Tea. And not found anymore. Let's go back to the UK then. That'd be on page 1, I believe. Daily Campus. Is there another one here? Yes. Again, Iowa. No, we don't want to do Iowa. Is it Elizabeth Maitland? Is that who it is? Elizabeth Murray. Elizabeth Murray. Let's try Little Old World. Ham House and Garden. I don't see any hauntings featured. Top tip. I need a ghost story. All Hill House. That's about the only thing. Provided context does not confirm the presence of a ghost specifically tied to Elizabeth Murray's dog. The ghosts of hymns. The ghosts of him. What is going on here? Why is it doing that? Proof of work capture. Human being. I'm not a robot. I ended up on some ad or something. Lost in the States is not going to be it. I'm not finding much on it, people. Let's ask AI to help us. I need to find a spooky story online about the Ham House of England, which is supposed to be haunted by Elizabeth Murray and or her dog. Here's a spooky story summary about Ham House. Legend. Is it a long reading? No. I am looking for a link to an already existing tale online. Of course, tale is spelled wrong. I'm not looking for tale. I'm looking for a tale. I don't know what that means. WJ, welcome. The Ghost of Ham House. Bite-sized Britain. Thank you. Here at bitesizedbritain.co.uk is a story by Anonymous entitled The Ghosts of Ham House. And Green Tea has also found the same link. So has T Plateau found a different one. Thank you, T Plateau. We'll open that one as well. You know, I think that I'm forgetting a story that's up here too. Yeah, this one. Do that one next. Okay, and that's here. And the anonymous author begins. Ham House and Garden in Richmond is said to be one of the most haunted houses in Britain, home to 16 ghosts, including a duchess, her dog, and a heartbroken servant. Welcome, Smooth Ranch. This 17th century home on the banks of the River Thames is owned by the National Trust, so you can go ghost hunting for yourself, or you can join a tour. Cold spots, the sound of footsteps, and the inexplicable scent of roses have been reported at the stately home. The central figure appears to be the restless spirit of Elizabeth Murray, Duchess of Lauderdale. She inherited Ham House from her father in 1655. In life, she was ambitious and ruthless. She played a dangerous political game by being friends with both Charles II and Oliver Cromwell. Her aim was to guarantee herself a place of influence, whoever ended up in power. She was equally strident in her personal life, taking family members to court when they crossed her. When her first husband died suddenly, she quickly married the recently widowed John Maitland, 1st Earl of Lauderdale. Some speculated darkly about how suspiciously close The deaths of both her husband and the Earl's wife facilitated Elizabeth rise further up the social ladder. Oh, really? But in the end, she ran out of luck. After the death of her second husband came financial problems. This, along with ill health, forced Elizabeth to confine herself to a single ground floor at Ham House. Ghostly events seem to be concentrated there on the ground floor. Some visitors report a strange, oppressive atmosphere in the room. Pets do not want to enter. There's also a large looking glass dating from Elizabeth's time that some people say they are too scared to glance through, inexplicably afraid of what or whom might be staring back. In addition, a woman in black, believed to be Elizabeth, has been seen on the stairs nearby. But she is not the only spirit to haunt Ham House. Ghostly screams of a young nobleman bent on self-harm, who fell in love with and was rejected by a servant girl, have also been heard at the property. Visitors have reported being mysteriously pushed downstairs and have seen the ghost of a spaniel wandering the first floor. The National Trust even states that the ghostly spaniel was the subject of a complaint from a lady who was appalled that the National Trust allowed dogs inside the house. And there are the myriad ghosts of Ham House. Ham House. Finally, at 36 minutes past the hour, there's this fine page someone has provided for us at bbc.com. A story by Robin Levinson King and Eloise Alana, entitled as 16, I was experimented on by the CIA, and now I'm suing. The first thing Lana Ponting remembers about the Allen Memorial Institute, a former psychiatric hospital in Montreal, Canada, is the smell, which was almost medicinal. I didn't like the look of the place, she told the BBC from her home in Manitoba. It didn't look like a hospital to me. That hospital, once the home of a Scottish shipping magnate, would be her home for a month in April of 1958, after a judge ordered the then 16-year-old to undergo treatment for disobedient behavior. It was there that Ms. Ponting became one of the thousands of people experimented upon as part of the CIA's top-secret research into mind control. Of course, it was the CIA paying these Canadian personnel to conduct the experiments. Now she is one of two named plaintiffs in a class-action lawsuit for Canadian victims of the experiments. On Thursday, a judge denied the Royal Victoria Hospital's appeal, paving the way for the lawsuit to proceed. If this is an old story, we can even find out what happened on that lawsuit, right? One day ago. I guess not. Brand new story, though. 1 day old. According to her medical files, which she obtained only recently, Ms. Ponting had been running away from home and hanging out with friends, of which her parents disapproved, after a difficult move with her family from Ottawa to Montreal. From Montreal. I was an ordinary teenager, she recalled, but the judge sent her to the hospital. Once there, she became an unwitting participant in covert CIA experiments known as MK Ultra. The Cold War project tested the effects of psychedelic substances like lysergic acid, electroshock treatments, and brainwashing techniques on human beings without their knowledge or consent. Over 100 institutions, hospitals, prisons, schools in the U.S. and Canada were involved. At the Allen, McGill University researcher Dr. Ewan Cameron drugged patients and made them listen to recordings, sometimes thousands of times, in a process he called exploring. The caption reads, "The Allen Memorial Institute in Montreal is where the CIA-backed experiments were conducted in Canada." Dr. Cameron would force Ms. Ponting to listen to the same tape recording hundreds of times. Ms. Ponting recalled, "It ran over and over again. You're a good girl. You're a bad girl." The technique was a form of psychic driving, says doctoral student Jordan Torbay, who researched his experiments and their ethical implications. Essentially, the minds of patients were manipulated using verbal cues, she says, adding, he also looked at the effects of sleep drugs, forced sensory deprivation, and induced coma. Medical records show Ms. Ponting was given lysergic acid as well as drugs like sodium amytal, a barbiturate, Dasoxin, a stimulant, as well as nitrous oxide, a sedative known as laughing gas. By April 30th, the patient had exploration. She had become quite tense and extremely violent when given the nitrous oxide, throwing herself half out of bed and starting to scream, Dr. Cameron wrote in one of her medical files, which Ms. Ponting has obtained through a Freedom of Information request. Green Tea says, sounds like a lot of colleges in the 70s. The harsh truth about the MK Ultra experiments first came to light in the 70s. Since then, several victims have tried to sue the U.S. and Canada. Lawsuits in the United States have largely been unsuccessful. But in 1988, a Canadian judge ordered the U.S. government to pay 9 victims $67,000 each. In 1992, the Canadian government paid 100,000 Canadian dollars to each of the 77 victims, but did not admit liability. Ms. Ponting was not among them, because she did not yet know she was a victim. For decades, she said she felt something was wrong with her, but did not learn of the details of her own involvement in the experiments until recently. She says she has little memory of what happened at the Allen, or in the years that followed it. Ms. Ponting eventually married and moved to Manitoba, where she had 2 children whom she is still close to. Now she is a grandmother to 4, but she says she has suffered long life repercussions from her time at the Allen. She said, excuse me, I felt it all my life because I was wondering why I would think this way, or what happened to me. She says she's had to be on a cocktail of medications her whole life to deal with the mental health issues, which she attributes to her time at the Allen, as well as recurrent nightmares. Sometimes I wake up screaming in the night because of what happened, she said. The Royal Victoria Hospital and McGill University declined to comment, as the case is still before the courts. The government pointed the BBC to its previous settlement in 1992, which it said was done for humanitarian reasons, and did not accept legal liability. For Ms. Ponting, the lawsuit is a chance to finally get some closure. Sometimes I sit in my living room and my mind goes back, and I can think of the things that happened to me. Every time I see a picture of Dr. Cameron, it makes me angry. Although Cameron's work has since become synonymous with MK Ultra experiments, Ms. Torbay says her research shows he didn't know he was being funded by the CIA at the time. His work with the U.S. intelligence agency ended in 1964, and he died shortly after of a heart attack in 1967. But regardless of whether he knew where the money was coming from, Ms. Torbay says he should have known the experiments he was conducting were not ethical. She says she hopes the lawsuit goes forward and the victims get some sense of justice. It isn't really about giving the patients back what they had lost, because that's not possible. But almost making sure their suffering wasn't in vain, that we do learn from this, she says. Looks like we're going on to another suggestion. Let's do T Plateau. And that was the MK Ultra. But at 45 minutes past the hour, we'll say 46, we're going to be looking into this final topic from T Plateau. And what is this? Princes in the Tower. Updates on the Princess in the Tower. And any DNA found. Princes. Let's do it from Reddit. Here at reddit.com, in the subreddit Tudor History, is it possible that the princes in the tower lived? I think it's widely accepted that they were unalived, possibly by their uncle Richard III in order to remove any rivals to his own claim to the throne. But no one can say with certainty that this is what happened to them. That's not the topic we need. Next. That's the only result. There's only one result. How could that be? Well, it looks like we're going to have to go to, oh, here we go. A link from Eldergrown. Thank you, Elder. Saving my butt again. Thank you, Elder. Reject all cookies. Here at essex.ac.uk is an uncredited story. Entitled, Research Reveals DNA of the Princes in the Tower. An Essex historian, begins anonymous, whose research was crucial in helping to identify the remains of Richard III, has also discovered the mitochondrial DNA of the so-called Princes in the Tower. The discovery by Dr. John Ashdown Hill makes it possible for the first time to prove whether bones held in Westminster Abbey are those of Edward V and his brother, Richard of Shrewsbury, Duke of York, the only sons of Edward IV. The findings of Dr. Ashdown Hill, who died in May, are revealed in the Mythology of the Princes in the Tower, published today. Today being July the 18th of this year. No. 11th July of 7 years ago. He was honorary senior lecturer in the Department of History at Essex. The boys, nephews of Richard III, were housed in the royal apartments of the Tower of London after their father's death in 1483. They disappeared shortly thereafter, and speculation about their fate remains rife. Working with academic Glenn Moran of Newman University, Birmingham, and using similar techniques to those he used to discover the mitochondrial DNA of Richard III, Dr. Ashdown Hill has been able to prove that opera singer Elizabeth Roberts is an all-female line descendant of the boys, revealing their mitochondrial DNA group. Elizabeth was traced by Glenn Moran. She is a direct descendant of the boys' aunt Margaret Woodville and is their first cousin 16 times removed. In 2012, it was Dr. Ashdown Hill's discovery that proved remains found in Leicester were those of Richard III. Speaking earlier in the year, Ashdown Hill explained, "It is generally believed that the boys' bones were found at the Tower of London in 1674 and were taken to Westminster Abbey where they remain. Those bones should be re-examined now to determine whether they are those of Edward and Richard." But I thought we were going to get a result here. Doesn't it say doesn't it lead where the mystery has been solved? The Missing Princess Project, they called it. He said, "Thanks to this remarkable new discovery, we now have both sets of DNA in order to make an identification of which remains in the urn, and the science to establish their sex and antiquity. Modern analysis of the flawed 1933 investigation suggests it's highly unlikely the remains are those of the sons of Edward IV. But if we are to be seekers of the truth, it's time to question the stories surrounding them." Myth-busting is what Ashdown Hill specializes in. We have the final piece of the puzzle. Evidently, they haven't analyzed it yet, though. Yeah, no results here, but according to DNA, according to DNA results, where is our, there it is, with the Princess in the Tower. According to mitochondrial DNA results, were the identities of the princes in the tower ever ascertained? We'll say 2 princes. No. According to current evidence, the identities of the 2 princes in the tower, Edward V and his brother Richard of Shrewsbury, have not been conclusively ascertained. Oh, there's the Tina Tomaszewski alarm. Saved by the bell. Thank you, Tina. Don't forget to join Tina, to follow Tina over to Peter McCarthy's live show beginning in 6.5 minutes at Dark Sayings here on YouTube. And be sure to come on back here next Saturday for the next Night Terrors this week. Until then, may God bless and protect us all.